Hey everybody, this is Rustin Rose with Metalholic Magazine. We're back here on Metal Nation Radio, and you just heard brand new music from Misery Index, the new album, Killing Gods. That was the calling. And with us tonight, Mark Kloeppel of Misery Index. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm a little disjointed today, but other than that, I'm doing pretty good, you know? It's all rock and roll, so... Man, you guys have been touring up a storm. How was Maryland Death Fest this year?
Oh, it was great. It's great. It's very hot. But other than that, it was pretty brutal out there. A lot of really great bands are playing at the Gates, Camel Mass, Gorguts, Too Many to Name. But yeah, we had a great time. We played the pre-party with some really great bands, Immolation, Noisem, Black Breath. I'm forgetting somebody. Us. But yeah, there was only 4 bands. But yeah, we played the main stage on Sunday in the Edison lot and had a really great turnout. And, yeah, it was a good time.
And I heard from some of my friends who were out there that you guys put on one hell of a show. So congratulations on all of that. Congratulations on the new album, which is phenomenal. It's easily going to be one of the best metal albums of the year. And of course,
well, we sure hope so. We put a lot of time and effort into it, as you can probably tell. And in terms of, like, performing and stuff, we kind of sort of second nature to us at this point. So I don't know if it's a good show or a bad show. We just kind of get out there and express ourselves, and that's what you see. So if people thought that was good, awesome.
Oh, and you guys just also did your European tour with Gorguts. How did that go?
It's cool. We played a pretty cool festival called SWR Fest in Portugal. We haven't been back to Portugal in quite some time. I think the last time we were there was maybe 2007 or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, that was cool. We did a little jaunt through the south of Europe, and we wound it up at Neurotic Death Fest, which is always a fun time because that's kind of a meeting place of all the who's who in the metal and grindcore and death metal scenes, and the guy Rude up there that runs that thing does a really, really good job of putting that together and organizing it. Kind of going on a digression here. I'm getting a master's degree in leisure studies, and what we do kind of falls into that. And I'm researching booking agents, promoters, and stuff, and just sort of revealing that whole structure there because it's kind of an understudy. But Rude is one of the guys that I interviewed, and he puts a great deal of time and effort and thought into that festival. So it's always a good time. And we had a great time, and it's a great presentation, and yeah.
I wanted to back up a little bit. Last year, you guys released The Brutal live in Munich, and I was wondering why you guys chose to release that only in vinyl format.
Was it only in vinyl? I think we had it in digital forms, too.
Maybe I'm just misreading.
They might have skipped the CD. I'm not really sure on that, you know. I'm a little ignorant. Oh, well. But yeah, that was kind of an interesting thing that just kind of fell together. Like our friend Dennis the Menace, he's got this thing he calls Clint Works. He does mixing and mastering, and that's what he calls it. Right. Anyway, him and his buddy just sort of showed up with their multi-track recorder, jacked it into the board, and that was on the Cannibal Corpse Behemoth tour. We had Pete Robertson, the sound guy. He used to do he's done all kinds of people, but Bad Brains from back in the day. And anyway, so the mix from the board sounded really good, and they captured that just because they felt like it. We don't normally do that. There was sort of like a spontaneous, hey, can we come record you guys? And we usually never say yes, but this time we said yes for some reason. And they captured it, and because of everything that was in play, the lineup was good, the turnout was good, we played particularly well, I guess, and we just happened to capture it. So just sort of like a snapshot in the middle of the tour. So it wasn't something like super planned out or contrived in any way. So we thought that alone was probably the best thing we could probably do to have a true, authentic, accurate live representation of us. So that's why we just went ahead and put it out, and yeah. And Season and Mist were down with it too. They heard the masters, and they were all about it. So
let's get to the new album, because as I said, I mean, we're already starting to look at what the best albums are of the year. We're only halfway through, and everybody's got the Killing Gods on their list somewhere. It's your first full-length studio album in 4 years, your longest break between records. Why have you been tormenting us for so long?
I don't know. We average about 3 years per album on average. If you looked at all of them, like from Retaliate to Discordia, there was a 3-year gap between those records. So it's not the first time we've taken a little longer between the records, and it was for different reasons at other times. But for this particular time, we were just sort of fed up with the whole 1.5 to 2 year album cycle that everyone seems to be locked into.
Right.
I mean, I think it's really great for making money for certain entities, and we're certainly in support of that because those entities also support us. But in terms of our art and our legacy, we really just wanted to take our time with this one and, writing it and mixing it and mastering it and not just churning out a product of the day, so to speak. And we wanted to take the extra time and effort to make something that was timeless. So that's what we did.
That's what I was going to sort of ask you, was how did having 4 years to write for this record affect the outcome from your perspective? Yeah, of course. We didn't stick to any sort of like time schedule. Like the time schedule didn't come first. The music came first. And so wherever the music sat and however inspired we were to make the next thing, that's what we did. I'll say it's like when a band first starts. When they first start writing music together, they spend a good 5 years composing their first songs before they go out and play them, or before they release any sort of record. And then after that, they're sort of thrust into this 1.5 to 2 year album cycle to sort of keep up with the Joneses and get product out to the masses. And I think that the music itself kind of loses quality because of that process. Right.
It might be masked very well, but definitely the burden of the schedule has negative artifacts within the music. I mean, I think I can hear it when bands are stressed to get it out. I think I can hear it in their records and stuff. And so we just wanted to, with the benefit of our expertise now being seasoned touring musicians, to go back to that and do that organic writing process with the benefit of our experience and the methodologies that we know how to utilize now. So that's why we did what we did.
I tell you, I was sort of worried when I was going to do this phone call with you, because I've been reading some of the interviews you've done, and I read your lyrics and everything, and I'm like, this man is far more intelligent than I can ever hope to be, and I'm going to sound like a moron just talking to him. So.
No, I'll probably sound like more of a moron because I'm a bit scatterbrained when it comes to this kind of thing. I'm a little bit more composed when I'm sitting behind, when I'm putting pen to paper, so to speak, and this is a little different, which you wouldn't think coming from a guy that stands in front of people with a microphone in front of his face all the time, but it's just a different animal, I guess.
Absolutely.
I have no problem talking to a group of 10,000 people. When I'm talking to just one, then I get nervous.
Now, this marks the first full studio album with your battery mate, Darren Morris. How did his presence impact the record?
He's had a great impact. He's got 3 songs on the record, lots of cool riffs, and of course the leads. The leads are out of control on this record. I mean, you can hear the classic metal influence on his lead playing. He's a big King Diamond, Merciful Fate kind of guy, Judas Priest kind of guy. So you hear that in a lot of his leads. And I felt that added a lot to our music, and I think it really opened it up a lot for me to create that kind of music that would be a good foundation for those kinds of leads. We've been playing with each other for 3.5 years at the point where we're putting this record to tape. So I had a pretty good idea of what kind of guitar player he was. And we've been jamming for a while, and we've been writing music together. So
yeah, it seemed pretty seamless when I was listening to it. Darren Morris's guitar playing on there, phenomenal. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the songs here in a minute, but I want to talk about the overall sound of the album too, because to my ear there is a little less grind and a little more death elements on this record, and even some thrash and groove bits, and noticeably, and this may be in part due to Darren's playing, more melodic elements.
Well, I've talked about this before. The sonic devices that we use for this record are no different than any other record. It's more of how we use them. Mm-hmm. So the vibe of the record is different. But if you look back to the Descent EP, where you hear a bunch of locusts and then this slower, droning kind of guitar riff with a dissonant type melody going over the top. That's kind of like how this album starts, and it has elements of that in there. That's just like one example, but there's all the stuff that we've done before we're doing on this record. We're not really doing anything new. We're just doing it in a different way.
Right. And you can sort of clearly hear some of those things, I guess, better on this album, or they're more noticeable. Some aspects of it, I guess, is how it came out. So
it's a darker vibe, but also the production's a lot better. We spent a lot of time on not spent about the same amount of time on tracking, but we spent a lot of time on mixing and mastering the record, which that wasn't exactly done on previous efforts, because we were on such a strict time schedule.
Well, and it came together beautifully. So, I mean, I guess it worked well taking that extra time to make this your probably your.
Oh yeah, we didn't spend an exorbitant amount of time. It's just when we got to the point where you would normally just succumb to stress and maybe say, okay, this is good enough, and the deadline's here anyway. We sort of got to that point and just pushed further. We dug a little bit deeper and just got the sound to be exactly what we wanted it to be. And it was really, really painstaking on everybody that was involved. Like our mastering guy, Tony Eichler, he told me he ran experiments on us, and we could tell the difference collectively. And it was across the board like, oh, the mix totally sucks now. That we could tell the difference collectively between a Chinese and a Russian vacuum tube in one particular compressor he was using on the guitars. He basically told us we were all insane, and no one should be able to hear that difference except him. But we could hear it, and like I said, we dug our heels in and really got what we wanted to get out of it, and didn't let the deadline impose on us. And really, it didn't take that much more time. It was just a different mindset.
Right. Well,
it was a lot more stressful.
But it clearly paid off. So now talking about the content of the album, you kick off with sort of a little mini concept, which I believe is sort of your piece that you wrote to start it off, sort of based around Faust. Share the backstory on that, if you would.
Well, it didn't come together how you would think. I mean, you would think that I wrote the thing linearly, and I had the whole concept in mind when I started, and that's not really what happened. I had a bunch of different riffs and stuff like that, little tidbits of song, 3 riffs here that went together, 3 riffs there that went together, and so I was just playing around with those, and I was also on the side doing these like little atmospheric pieces that really I didn't even know I was going to use, and then Jason came to me with, we had talked about doing like a whole theme album before,
right?
But then we didn't know if we really wanted to do that for an entire record, like if our crowd would really dig that, or if the digital age would even tolerate it, attention span wise, if people are really into listening to entire albums anymore. I mean, 45 minutes of a theme album. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know. We didn't know if the grindcore, the Who's Tommy would work out very well. So, since in our indecision, we sort of manifested both. You have, the first 15 and a half minutes of the record is this theme album, and then the rest of it's like these more individualized songs, sort of like Rush's 2112.
Right.
The existence of that album was enough justification for us for it to be okay. I had all these different pieces of the piece of the whole Faust thing sort of hanging around, and Jason and I were having a lot of conversations about this theme album, and we were thinking, okay, well, what kind of theme are we going to do? What kind of narrative are we going to talk about? And he had just finished reading a book by Berman, and his first name just escapes me right now, but it's All That Solid Melts in Air, where he uses Faust to sort of point out the ills of the world, so to speak, and how human desires are insatiable. And he uses the character of Faust to show this, and how progress progresses itself until to the living end.
Right.
And so we sort of borrowed that and did a modernization of the narrative from Goethe's, the second part of Goethe's play, and just use that as a means of expectation for certain things that we ills of the world, so to speak. So
there seems to be a lot of religious or perhaps anti-religious imagery on this record, or am I misreading that?
We're definitely anti-religion. We see it, for the most part, being used as a means of manipulation by the powers that be, using idols as a focal point for mass manipulation. So that's definitely what the album generally revolves around, and sort of the absurdity of of people following that, despite everything that they know, and everything that they know. So, but yeah, that's basically the general theme of the album, and the artwork reflects that. And Gary Ronaldson from Bite Radius Designs did a pretty good job of capturing everything that we wanted to. In the past, we sort of done this collage of album themes within the artwork, and so we saved that for the deluxe package. So you have, the album Minerva sitting on Death's shoulder and certain imagery like that. Before the normal release, we wanted something a little bit simpler and sort of just a little mysterious and iconic and occultish. So that's what Gary delivered to us. And so basically on the front cover, you have this dead hand revealing a hand to you, but all that's being revealed to you is the back of the cards. So you don't know what kind of thing you're getting dealt in life, so to speak. And it's sort of wrapped up in all this, occult imagery from ages yore or now, depending on what your beliefs are and what kind of things you use to perpetuate your beliefs. I mean, and we're not saying that, your personal faith is bad, and we're not saying what you do personally is necessarily a bad thing. We don't like the use of false idols as a means of control, and religion as a means of control.
Right.
And so this album is our commentary on it. I mean, I don't know. People can do and believe what they want to. I'm not trying to hate on anyone else's thing they got going on. I mean, our human senses are pretty limited. I mean, it's over 90% of the universe we can't even detect. So
right.
Who knows what's going on? But there needs to be an acknowledgement of all people that we need to acknowledge that who knows what's going on? Nobody. We're slowly figuring out one tiny piece at a time. And then you have the powers that be trying to blast us back into the Stone Ages by perpetuating these ignorance-inducing beliefs.
So now, you guys, through all your writing, your lyrics, even your performance, always seems sort of a little pissed off and angry, and I'm really sensing it on this record. What's pissing you off these days?
The polar ice caps are melting. Generally speaking, the polar ice caps are fucking melting, man. Our coats are going to go away. We cannot learn to have a symbiotic relationship with our environment. It is absurd. The perpetuation of the slow slavery through indentured servitude, and I mean, the whole thing's absurd. Why do it? Why hoard? Why are these people at the top hoarding all this wealth? For what? So they can have power? For an ego trip? For what? For what good is it to anyone, even themselves?
Right. I mean, you keep seeing that divide getting bigger and bigger to where where there's no more middle class. From my perspective, America, if not the world, is literally sliding sideways at this point. There's this impending sense of darkness, and I get that same sense coming from you guys when I read your lyrics, and even Jason's to some extent, that sense of discontent that we're in trouble, real trouble.
Well, I guess until the powers that be decide that, keeping things copacetic is important again. I mean, that's all anyone really wants anyway, right? You want to be comfortable, you want things to be okay, and basically the people at the top got a little too greedy. They let their greed run away with them, and I don't know if it's going to get to the point where, I mean, I just don't even know if there's a chance of an uprising. I mean, I just don't know. I hope there is. I hope there's a way to turn this thing on its head. From some sort of worldwide grassroots just sort of pops up out of nowhere no organization whatsoever, just sort of like emerges like a sapling, ripping its way out of the ground. I'm all for this, whatever this organic reaction is going to be. I just don't know if that reaction is going to come from humans. If human beings are going to just take heed to their inner consciousness and take it upon themselves to make some changes, because otherwise, we're just going to get eradicated by Mother Nature. And in the end, so it's in our best interest to take heed to this call on the inside of us and really just start acting upon it.
Right. I mean, we're all inconceivably small in all of this, too. I mean, I can hardly get beyond looking at just the state of our nation. Our forefathers stated that we have now is not a permanent system of government. When it stops working, they said scratch it and start over. And I think you may know this better than I. You probably got more history knowledge than I. But I think the longest running system before ours was like Greece, which only lasted 90-something years. We're almost 2.5 centuries, and we keep bastardizing our government documents and founding system.
Yeah, it's tough as a population grows. How do you, what is the good balance of governing people? The governing itself is a limitation of freedom. It's like where exactly do you draw the line? It's really a big gray area. So there is no solution. There is no pie in the sky. It's just sort of a broken system, and it will always be a broken system. Now, no matter what kind of thing goes into place, you'll have some kind of revolution, and it'll start all over again. And then, after a certain period of time, you start developing, maybe not the exact same problems, but similar problems. And, it's sort of a cycle, and that's why they call it revolution.
That's true.
Because it revolves.
And unfortunately, that's a scary thing for us as parents or grandparents, whatever the case may be, because, you and I don't know how much time we've got left, but we know our kids and our grandkids are going to be around for a while, and I'm just a little scared about what's going to be left for them here in another couple of decades.
Yeah, it's going to be a different world.
Definitely.
That's for sure. It's going to be different. That's okay, I guess. I mean, as long as, we're not all burning to a crisp on, on the surface of the earth, then we can figure out something else, I guess, then it's okay, but,
Just as a way of getting to know you a little bit better, give us 3 albums that changed your life.
Oh, geez. Oh, man. That's a heavy question. It might not be old enough to be cool, but Destroy, Erase, and Prove from Meshuggah was a life changer for me. Another one, I like some pretty obscure stuff. Like, I started off on obscure stuff. In St. Louis, where I grew up, it's not like it is on the coast or anything, where everyone and their mom is listening to At the Gates,
right.
and below, from a very early age. For me, it was like you had other people's older brothers, and you had the missing link, the record store that sounded funk that was in St. Louis for a long time. A lot of the old bands that were doing the DIY thing will tell you about that place, CDs and stuff like that. So I definitely grew up on some more obscure stuff that I dug out of Missing Link, stuff that Frank threw me onto. There's an album by a band called Autumn Leaves called As Night Conquers Day that was a really big influence on my guitar playing. But this is it was a kid band. They were 17. They put out their first record,
right?
And I think they only did 2, maybe 3 records, and then it was over. And so it was like a local band up there, or something. Like Two Madsen's cousin or something. So yeah, but of course, stuff that everyone knows, like Edge of Sanity had a big influence on me, and a lot of Dan Serrano's projects, like Infest Dead, Jesus Satan, had a big influence on my playing. Just because its riffs are so, the riffs on that album in particular, and Jesus Satan, I think they were trying to be Deicide or something, but it's different. It's just it's really groovy and crunchy. I mean, the production is horrible, the drum machine, but it's just the spirit of the riffs are really, really aggressive and fun and groovy. And I've always liked that about Dan. I'll cut it off there. those are my 3. I don't think I stopped at 3. There's probably 5 or 6 albums.
That's okay. The whole point of it was to get to know a little bit more about you. Mark Kloeppel, Misery Index, thank you so much for taking the time. Have a fantastic evening, and we will talk with you soon and see you on the road.